Hey, this is a bit of a weird video for my channel, but I'd like some input. Recently, I've been getting into watching a lot of Scott the Woz videos. Now, I know that he's been pretty big on the platform already for a lot of people, and they already recognize that name immediately. But for me, hearing him talk about all these old consoles and video games has brought me back into, like, the passion of the industry. So much so that I now have this insatiable desire that I always had to begin with, but now I have the funds to do it. Buy all the old consoles that I couldn't when I was younger, and or before I was born. What I'd like to do is have this video kind of out in the air, out in the open, to have you guys help me weigh the options of what I should or shouldn't buy in today's age of technology, I'll say. I've got a list here with me of some of the things that I've been thinking about. Now, while there are some zany options out there, such as the Ouya, that is not on my personal list. While collectors may want that and everything, and all like the explicitly digital consoles such as the Google Chromecast thing that they were planning on making, which failed. That's not my whole thing. I've got certain tastes that I would like fulfilled, I guess. Starting with Nintendo. In my list, I have the SNES. Now, this one kind of goes back to when I was a kid and I was gifted one along with a catalog of games from my cousin. Because I was young and wanted the next thing, probably what was a Nintendo DS at the time, sold those stupidly. I'm interested in collecting those and then some select few games that are kind of the de facto reason to buy certain consoles. And that's gonna be like the main reason for a lot of these. Followed up by the Virtual Boy. Now hold on. I know that that's a terrible thing to say. And the only reason I say that is because I know that a local shop that's around my area did have one, and quite a big collection of games for it for some reason. I don't know if it's still there at this time because it was just a photo supplied by consumers of the store, but it might be a fun thing. Which leads me into the other thought. I would kind of also like to have these consoles and everything available to record. Now, that's not always going to be the case because we have something like the Game Boy, which I'm not totally into. However, the Gamecube does have a Game Boy player, and I have a bunch of Game Boy Advance games, and that would be my reason for buying the GameCube. But why wouldn't I want a GameCube? Because I already have a Nintendo Wii, and those are backwards compatible with GameCube games. And I would also like to play a few games that I personally own on the Nintendo Wii with a GameCube controller, and just, I know that those are already accessible. Hey, I don't need to buy another console. This is the whole reason for this video. I would like some input. Followed up by the Wii U. Listen, I know it failed, and I know its catalog is very already, but that's the reason for all of this, is like, is there a justified reason for owning a Wii U? I personally am enamored by technology and how everything is utilized in certain consoles, such as the touchscreen for the Nintendo DS and the Wii U, but is that not kind of the same whole situation? On the opposite end of the spectrum, it's also able to play Wii games on 1080, but I am still interested in seeing how the gaming industry used this system and its technology for the better. Now, I have two other consoles through Nintendo that I would like to bring up. First off, being the original NES. The reason that I'm not totally jazzed with that, and along with other titles, is just because of graphical limitations. Now, I know that this system is much better than some other systems that came before it, such as the Atari or the Intellivision or Coleco for that matter. But I personally don't really see the full value of owning one of those for the reason that the Nintendo Switch Online exists. And that's also another reason why I've been hesitant about getting the GameCube or the Nintendo 64, which I don't remember if I mentioned that before. The Nintendo 64 has also been in the back of my mind, and I have it written down, but I think I just glossed over it. But having a catalog of all these previous games available on the Nintendo Switch Online, as well as having the games selection of the Sega Genesis, I don't know if it's actually worth it in the long run. Because I would love to experience these games with the technology that they originally released on. Now, I'm not opposed to playing games in their definitive versions, which meaning to be the best way to play, but I really do want to explore more options, which leads me into the new Nintendo 3DS. XL is the version that I would prefer, mainly because of the better technology as compared to my original 3DS, which would have a larger screen and the ability to experience the stereoscopic 3D effect, having the facial tracking to actually enhance the 3D effect. However, I don't think there's a justifiable reason for games for the new Nintendo 3DS because of the 14 game catalog for the new Nintendo 3DS. I have to specify that. Only 4 of them actually got a Western release, I believe. And of those 4, one of them is just an upgraded version of the Wii, one is just Minecraft, and 2 others, I think, already have other ports on other systems. So those 4 games are already out the window. So the other 10 that only received releases in Japan, maybe. It's been a while since I've last looked into it. I don't see the full reason for that, but it would at least offer me a better way to record DS games and 3DS games that I already own, and that being backwards compatible up until a certain point, obviously. Switching gears into the Microsoft line, this is vastly different from what I'm seeing in the naming scheme for the Nintendo, switching up literally every letter under the sun. The Xbox original is something that I would like to get into, and that is literally the only one that I have any interest in at this moment. But even in saying that, about 50% of the catalog for Xbox games are available to play on the Xbox 360 via backwards compatibility. Now, that's not to say that I'm actually opposed to anything from the Xbox One or the Series X and S, but I don't actually have any draw to some of the exclusives and or tech that isn't already available in another console. So those right there, I would kind of need some convincing for, as well as maybe some hindsight on if the Series X and S have the online catalog, such as the Nintendo Switch Online, if that's even available. Because I know that PlayStation, through Sony, does, which leads me to maybe wanting a PlayStation, the original. PlayStation 1, I know, is available at my local GameStop, along with the screen that you can have, and I specify the PlayStation 1. It's the mini version of the original. But I also know that the PS2 is also backwards compatible, but up until a certain point. I know that select games actually don't work on that. And then jumping past the PS2, because I already own one, the PS3. Now, I don't actually have any tie to the PS3 at all. I actually, in my mind, want to skip this, but for the reason of the PS Move is something that I would like. And any other peripherals that you happen to know of, I would love to test out, because I know that there was a bunch for the Nintendo DS. I mean, hell, the biggest one that everybody kind of knows was the buttons for the Guitar Hero games that utilized the Game Boy cartridge. Game Boy Advance compatibility, I believe. But the PS Move would be my whole reason for buying a PS3. Now, I already know that my capture card that I use to record games would not actually work with the PS3 for the HD 60S. This is the version I have through Elgato. And the reason being is because there's HDCP, high definition content protection. That one should not be abbreviated by itself. I've already looked into a way for me to get around that. There are splitters that I can buy for like $11, and like I've already seen reviews saying it works. Hey, maybe this came broken. So there are pros and cons to some that I am looking at. In the PS3, there also came the PSP, which I kind of skipped my radar for a while when I was younger. Listening to the stories that are available, I actually was more interested in seeing how the UMD discs were utilized in that technology, which leads me to the PS Vita, which is a console that I was actually genuinely interested in. I didn't have the money at the time. And the main draw for the technological side is I would love to see how games introduced the ability to have two touchscreens because of the trackpad on the back, trackpad maybe, and the touchscreen on the front. I've always been interested in seeing how game studios utilized that technology in game development. Now, on the offshoot of the PS4 and the PS5 that I already own, I would be interested in playing some of the PSVR and PSVR 2 games. However, I know those can get a little bit expensive because I've already looked into other VR outlets, including the Oculus, which is now Meta, as well as the HTC Vives and every iteration that's come after that, which I haven't heard a lot from, but the one that draws the most amount of attention from me is the Valve Index. And I know, like, everybody and their mother has, like, well, maybe not their mother, because I do have interests in the VR field, and I do have a graphics card in my computer that does have the capabilities to withstand that power. Now, I might need to upgrade to record that for some of my computer parts because they are starting to show their age in my system, but I'm not opposed to doing anything like that. Again, this video is for your input. I do know that for PlayStation, a lot of the old catalog is available through their online subscriptions, where whatever more expensive tier that they have for playing old PS2 games, such as the original God of War games. I personally own both the new God of War and God of War Ragnarok on my PS5. But I would love to play those old 4 games, because I know 1, 2, and 3, and then Ascension came after 3, I was told. I would love to go back and play some of those to experience the full story. And those are the 3 big draws for previous game consoles. Mainly Nintendo and Sony. However, I'm not opposed to going back in the past and visiting Sega systems. The only one that I really have any interest in is the Sega Dreamcast, mainly because of the controller and seeing how the little screen was utilized. I've always heard that the Sega Dreamcast controller had a screen, but I've never actually seen it in use. Any time that I've ever seen a video, even in Scott the Waz videos that got me interested in these in the first place, he kind of just mentions it and then goes right back to footage. Like, he shows that it's available there, but I don't know how it's utilized. And then, like I mentioned before, my local game shop has the Coleco, Intellivision, and Atari systems, but I would really need some convincing to get those. Mainly the Atari, because, oh boy, those are kind of rough. And then one last, like, footnote of, like, a handheld console that I kind of showed some interest in, and, I think the reason that I even found out about this in the first place, I think, was actually like Jacksepticeye, maybe, years ago, mentioning this through Panic, the Playdate. It's a little kind of like Game Boy, original Game Boy setup, but it has like a crank on the side, and it's kind of limited graphically, but like I said, I'm more interested in seeing how the technology for all of these works. And as a parting thought, I do want to mention, I do play a lot of games on PC and Steam, and there have been multiple ports of other games that are already available on PC, such as Okami. As it's been just announced that there's going to be an Okami 2 or whatever game, because I currently own Okami HD via Steam for PC. So I just want to leave this video saying thanks if you did check it out and maybe helped me along the way to weigh my options. I do have the funds to buy each and every console, as I've seen. Now, games, that's another matter, considering when I went to go check out my store recently, I saw Chibi Robo for $320. Have a nice day.